Today is a big day for Helldivers fans as we now have a ton of information on the next major update. Escalation of Freedom drops on August 6th, just in time for Helldivers 2's 6-month birthday. How crazy is that? It does not feel like this game has been out for 6 months, but here we are. This update looks absolutely insane, and I could not be more hyped about the announcement. We know that most of Arrowhead is on summer vacation at the moment, so a lot of players, including myself, just kind of assumed we wouldn't be getting anything new for a while. But it looks like they've been cooking behind the scenes because this update looks absolutely massive. So for today's video, I want to break it all down, but we're not just going surface level. We are diving deep, going frame by frame, getting into the game files, looking through leaks, and speculating over every little detail. I'm going to do my best to give you guys the coverage that you deserve to try to make you not only feel hyped, but prepared for the next update. So it goes without saying that this video likely contains slight leaks and spoilers for both gameplay and potentially story elements of Helldivers 2. Now, I'll put you at ease right now, there is nothing in here that is going to be too revealing or anything that's going to absolutely spoil your fun or surprise in the future, but I do reference leaks to help me speculate and come to conclusions based on what we saw in the trailer today. So that's your official spoiler warning, and now that that is out of the way, let's go through this trailer frame by frame, see what we can find, and break it down as we go. Then to top it all off, I'll give you some predictions on what else I think could be included in this update.
Since launch, we've improved Helldivers quite significantly together with you, the community. We've released a lot of content, such as the flyers, the TCS missions, the destruction of an entire planet. This time around, we got something special prepared for you.
It's our first step out of many, where we're gonna expand the game in big, meaningful ways.
So the trailer kicks off with our first look at the Larva backpack, the Spore Charger, and the Impaler's tentacles. We will get more information and better looks at all three of these things later in the trailer, so we'll save the analysis until then, but I promise there is a ton to talk about with these three reveals.
Since launch, we've improved Helldivers quite significantly together with you, the community. We've released a lot of content, such as the flyers, the TCS missions, the destruction of an entire planet. This time around, we got something special prepared for you.
It's our first step out of many, where we're gonna expand the game in big, meaningful ways.
Hey, we get a Johan sighting. That's always nice. He's looking as great as ever, especially with that new Chief Creative Officer title. We also meet Nicholas, who is the design director on Helldivers 2, and says, and I quote, "It's our first step out of many where we're going to expand the game in big, meaningful ways." I don't want to be a crazy conspiracy theorist and pretend this trailer is like a Marvel movie trailer or something, but I think what Nicholas says here is actually something of substance. If you don't remember, Arrowhead's mentality for updates since release has been small weekly patches and updates, but back in late May and early June, this was completely scrapped. In fact, they didn't have a single update for around 5 weeks, but on that 5th week, we got the biggest Helldivers 2 patch we've ever seen. And I think this update just confirms their commitment to this new mentality. Gone are the days of getting small weekly patches, because now it looks like they are fully committed to dropping most of their content at the same time. I actually much prefer it this way, because it not only gives the devs enough time to make sure the content actually works, but it also generates a ton of hype within the community like this trailer did.
New game modes, new objectives, new enemies, and even a whole new difficulty.
To give you that, we have to escalate it. An escalation of freedom.
And now we've got our first sighting of a new objective. This does not get mentioned by name in the trailer or the blog, but I am 100% sure this is a new objective because I've seen it before. This is an automaton centrifuge mixer. Now, I'm not going to show the images of the leaks that I have because I'd like to stay at least in somewhat of good graces with Arrowhead, and putting out leaks isn't the way to do that. Plus, it's kind of illegal. But I can tell you that this was leaked by a leaker named Iron Sights over 3 months ago. We know for a fact that it is a new objective, but we aren't certain whether it is a primary or a secondary objective. The description reads that this is where automatons grind brave soldiers into paste, and as you can see in the trailer, there is just a bunch of bodies on the floor. Pretty disgusting, actually, but yeah, that's what they're doing here. They are taking dead Super Earth soldiers and putting them in a blender. The one goal with this objective is to destroy it, and by the looks of it in the trailer, it's just in a normal automaton outpost, so what that tells me is that it's probably a secondary objective like destroy illegal broadcast, but it could very well be a primary. We'll just have to wait and see. We also get a shot of the new Rocket Strider, which is surely going to be a pain in the butt. This thing is equipped with rockets on top of having its normal blasters in the front. But it's also completely covered. You cannot hit the pilot from any angle, so you're either going to need explosives or medium armor pen to take these guys down. We can also see on this cover screen in the top left, there's what seems to be automaton capital ships. Obviously, they need some sort of space travel to go from planet to planet, so in lore, that is likely what takes them there. If you're wondering if we'll ever see them in game, I'd say it's unlikely, but anything is possible.
When freedom escalates, its opponents escalate.
We're bringing back a fan favorite from Helldivers 1, the stabby, tentacled beast known as the Impaler.
When you're playing against the Terminids, you can always try and run away. The Impaler ruins that plan. They will maybe cut off your escape route, and then you will probably have to stay and fight. Or you can fight the tentacles.
Like the devs mentioned, this is the Impaler. They say it's a fan favorite, but I don't know about that because it seems like most people are absolutely terrified of this thing, and rightfully so. Honestly, I sat here looking at this trailer for quite a while trying to figure out exactly how this thing fights, and based on what we've seen and what we know from Helldivers 1, I think I've got it down. So it looks like this bad boy is armored all over, and if you take a look at where its face would normally be, these are its 3 tentacles. It's a little hard to see, but you can see here that it shoves its face into the ground, then the tentacles pop up. We don't get a much clearer shot of it doing this, but we do know from Helldivers 1, while it attacks with tentacles, it cannot move and it leaves its body vulnerable. But as I mentioned, the Impaler is armored all over, so you can't just walk up with your primary and start blasting. You're going to need some sort of anti-tank or heavy weaponry to take it down. It is also mentioned in the trailer that you could either fight the tentacles or go for the main body. In the original game, doing significant damage to the main body or stunning the body will cause the tentacles to retract, so I can assume that it will function very similarly here.
The Spore Charger. This one has fog traveling around it. It's constantly moving, so it's going to come right out of the fog and scare the lights out of you.
The automatons are bringing in artillery.
A big tank that shoots rockets.
If you're further away, you can see it aim towards the skies and fire rockets in the air, so you'll have a barrage coming down on you.
In addition, you'll face off against heavier, more deadly brood commanders.
With a small twist. The allies that it spawn will not be the ones that you're used to.
On top of the Impaler, we've got 3 more enemy reveals. These ones aren't as exciting as the Impaler if you ask me, but they are still really cool additions to the game. First up, we've got the Spore Charger, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a charger that shoots off spore clouds, obscuring everything around it and making it very difficult to see. Basically, once you see it, it's probably too late. You're gonna end up on your face. We've also seen this guy leaked a few months ago, and originally it was speculated that once it dies, it would explode on death. We have no confirmation of this, so we'll just have to wait and see. Next, we have the Automaton Rocket Tank. Like the Spore Charger, there isn't much to talk about here because it's basically just another variant of something that exists in the game. However, it does bring something unique to the table compared to the other tanks. This thing can track you over long ranges and arc its missiles to come down on top of you instead of just shooting them straight. So it seems like it'll function somewhat like a moving mortar if you get far enough away. It'll shoot barrages of rockets on you, and it seems like this is an enemy you have to take out very quickly. Lastly, we'll also be challenged with the Alpha Commander, which is basically a normal Brood Commander but heavier, tankier, and calls in stronger units. In the trailer, it says that it actually spawns allies that are going to be a small twist and ones that we aren't used to. If you ask me, that means it's probably going to spawn normal Brood Commanders, or even something like a Charger would be cool. Either way, it's not going to be spawning normal warriors, you can bet on that.
Difficulty 10 has more enemies than we've had before on lower difficulties. We've really ramped it up. It's meant to feel like a real progression from 9 to 10.
So we do get confirmation of a difficulty 10, a super hell dive, and this is all the talk in the town at the moment. They say it's going to have more enemies than the lower difficulties, and that it is meant to feel like a real progression from 9 to 10. The blog says that combat rating 10 is going to be the most relentless difficulty yet, and that it is going to give players the intensity they look for on the battlefield, but will also come with greater rewards. I am really happy to hear that they're introducing another difficulty. Helldivers 1 has 15 of them, so we've got to start catching up now. What has me most intrigued here is that they say it will feel like a real progression going from 9 to 10, and I want to know what that looks like, because difficulties 7 through 9 all feel kind of the same to me, so I hope they find a way to make this difficulty truly distinguishable from 9. I'd love for a super hell dive to be actual hell. I know it's a hot take, but I want this difficulty to not cater towards solo players. It should be something that even a full squad struggles with. I want this to be the difficulty that brings out team play and forces players to utilize co-op mechanics as the game intended, so fingers crossed this difficulty is actually hard.
We're also introducing a larger type of outpost, and it's going to be a real challenge to take on these massive fortresses. But if you manage to do so, there will be great rewards waiting for you.
And now we've got to look at the bigger and better enemy outposts. In the blog, they say these outposts will be heavily fortified and requires players to strategize and coordinate to take them down. They say these are optional objectives and will not be exclusive to difficulty 10, so choosing to take them on will yield massive rewards. In the blog, they say, and I quote, brand new super sample rewards. This can be interpreted in a couple of ways, but how I see it, it's basically just going to be a massive stash of samples, probably super samples. I honestly hope it's a little more than that because I'd love to get some sort of unique reward or even a buff for the rest of the mission if you complete a fortress, but I can't be too mad with samples because these tier 5 modules are freaking expensive and tier 6 is not going to be any cheaper. As you can see, the bug fortress just kind of looks like what the missions on Meridia looked like. It's a bit different with the massive structure in the center, but it does look similar. I have to assume that whatever reward waits for us is probably inside or next to that massive structure in the middle. But over to the bot fortress, this thing looks truly imposing. This base is actually scary to look at. It is not only massive, but has a ton of bells and whistles, including turrets, factories, and even a detector tower in the center. My favorite part is that it actually has walls surrounding every side, so it seems like the only way to get in is through pre-made gates, so this will literally feel like an actual raid that we're doing, sending in a full squad through one entrance and tactically making our way through. Or you could just drop a couple of 380s and call it a day. Unless these had the ability to spawn stratagem jammers. I know it is probably high treason to want to see this, but I really want to see one of these bases with a stratagem jammer. It would be awesome if they were sort of randomly generated or came in a couple of different variants and one had the potential to spawn a jammer inside instead of a detector tower. Because I am a bit worried that these bases might be a bit too easy on the bot front if we can just drop 4 orbital lasers and call it a day. I'd love for us to be truly forced to stick together and tactically make our way through a base. That would just be so much fun. Lastly here, we get a shot of a Helldiver holding an automaton head. I have absolutely no idea what this could be used for, but it's either an objective, a secondary objective, or it could even be the reward for defeating a fortress, and maybe we have to extract with it or something like that. But I have tried to cross-reference this thing. It is not in Helldivers 1, it is not in any leaks, so in the end, I truly have no idea what this could be used for, so let me know down below if you have any thoughts.
Of course, what would the galaxy be without planets? Therefore, we wanted to spook it up with a new version of the swamp environment.
The Acid Storm weather effect now comes with a new mechanic. It reduces the armor of enemies and Helldivers alike. You'll do a lot more damage, but you'll also take more in return, which is just as horrifying as it sounds.
Okay, so here we see a new biome, which really isn't totally new. It's basically just slightly retextured with darker colors and fog, but if you know me, I love the swamp/jungle biome, and getting a new foggy and darker variant of it just sounds sick, right up my alley. The blog says that this map features rolling fog, untamed flora, and blackened trees that will obscure the light and make the air itself feel haunted. It tells us to keep our flashlights handy because visibility is limited and light is key. If only our weapon flashlights didn't completely suck. Then we get confirmation that the Acid Storm will now come with a new environmental hazard, which reduces the armor of all units on the map, making everything die faster, Helldiver and enemy alike. I actually really love this because let's be honest, Helldivers are already glass cannons in our current state, so why not just double down on that and do more damage to the enemy? So the storm causes armor reduction, but I'm interested in how much of an armor reduction there actually is, because it would be really cool if it took the armor down like an entire tier. So say a medium pen weapon could start damaging heavy armor. That would truly introduce a new playstyle based on the environment, which I think the game desperately needs. Lastly here, we actually see this dude that is holding the Diligence has another weapon on his back that is not in the game. We have no clue what that is. It looks like a primary, but we know that's not possible because the player is holding a Diligence and you can't hold 2 primaries. So that must be a stratagem support weapon, and now the question is, what is it? Well, I don't have an answer you'll like, because I have no idea. Again, I tried cross-referencing with some leaks, and there is absolutely nothing that resembles that thing at all. So let me know down below what you think that is.
In Escalation of Freedom, we have new objectives coming in, like the Retrieve Larva mission, where you find this backpack with little crying larvae that you need to reach the extraction with. But you also have to be careful because it's gonna be crying a lot, and you're getting swarmed by more and more Terminids.
And we get another look at the Automaton Centrifuge objective, which I already talked about earlier, so we won't delve back into that because there isn't much new to be seen here. But what is new is we finally get to the bug larva mission, which really has me hyped. They don't give a ton away, but from the trailer we can gather that you basically just grab a backpack, steal a larva, and have to extract it to beat the mission. It sounds simple, but the real challenge comes from the fact that it seems like, at least on higher difficulties, enemies should be constantly spawning and coming at you in endless waves because the dev says that the larva cries and makes noise, which causes Terminids to chase you down. Now, I'll also add that there have been leaks involving this backpack and this mission, and these should only get you more hyped. I want to restate that leaks should be taken with a grain of salt because not all of them make it to the game, and some that do will take longer to arrive than others, but I think considering that we got the larva reveal at all is very promising for what's to come. First of all, in the leaks, this backpack actually has two variants. This is the bug version, and there's also a cyborg version. The cyborg version is called a chemicals backpack and utilizes the same model as the larva backpack. So that tells me that we could see a similar mission to this one at some point, except just on the automaton front. I don't think we'll be getting it right away, but maybe they'll see how players react to the bug version and then introduce the automaton version later. On top of this, and perhaps even more exciting, is that there are two versions of the bug larva. One is the mutated Strider larva, and the other is the Hive Lord larva. By the way, Strider just refers to the Bile Titan, but this means there are either random versions of this mission or we'll have to extract with two backpacks. Either way, I think it's super cool that we even have a Hive Lord reference at all. We've seen their fossils and skeletons on planets, but this is the first time we're actually going to see a version of them in game. It is a baby, but still, it's it. And the leaks that we have fully rendered versions and zoomed in versions of the larva, and I can tell you right now that the Hive Lord larva looks exactly like a Hive Lord baby would. So consider this to be tease number 1 to the inevitable boss fight that we'll get in this game.
With the Second Galactic War in full swing, Super Earth is currently battling the automatons and the bugs for control of the Milky Way. The Automaton Legion, they are constantly building bigger and worse war machines. The Terminids' migration patterns seem to be changing. There's also been some irregular readings of the Terminid spores in the various sectors where the Terminids are spreading. And we will see where the story develops from here.
So finally, we get some teases as to where the story is going to go. To be honest, things have been a little stale lately on the narrative front, and we've gotten a ton of filler major orders that are kinda just boring and don't progress us much in the war. However, I think that's because they are gearing up to give us another Meridia-esque arc. I think another major event is just around the corner. That being said, mostly everything that is said in this video is a big nothing burger. At least I think so. The narrative director basically tells us that the automatons are always building bigger and better threats, the Terminids are displaying some weird migration patterns, and there have been some irregular readings on spores in the galaxy. So yeah, we don't get much revealed, but I'd like to think that they will follow up on what is said here. If we're being hopeful, the reference to the automatons building bigger threats could be referring to whatever they've been doing on Cyberstan, because that is their homeworld, and we still haven't been there since they took it back 3 months ago. We can also hope that the Terminid spore readings could be telling us that a much bigger threat could be on the horizon, hopefully the Hive Lord, right? But anyway, I think it sounds like they're gearing up for some fun stuff in the future, and I can't wait till it gets started. It's gonna be great.
So, have we told you everything that's gonna be in the Escalation of Freedom? Of course we haven't.
We have many more surprises in store for you.
A surprise here and there that you maybe didn't expect.
On August 6th, I'm ready to dive, and I hope you are too.
Lastly, of course, they let us know that this trailer doesn't show us everything. There are going to be surprises waiting to be found on August 6th, and I can't wait for that day. It is going to be so much fun. I am pumped. Shameless plug, by the way, if you're excited too, you should probably join my Discord. We have over 1,800 members, and people are talking all day, every day about Helldivers 2. We constantly have a ton of lobbies going at the same time, the people are really nice, and everyone is usually on comms, so when this update drops, if you want some teammates to play with, do so there. Trust me, the people are great. Discord.gg/itseasymode. The link will also be in the description. Alright, back to your regularly scheduled program, we get a final tease at the very end of the trailer. I don't think this is all too exciting, but we do see a bunch of jump pack automatons all flying in together. So I think this is telling us that we're going to start seeing patrols of these jump pack dudes, and we're going to see some variants of them. Because if you take a look at the dudes in the second row, those guys are not holding the standard pistol that they usually have. They have machine guns. I can't tell you exactly what those are, but they are definitely not normal weapons that these dudes carry. So this basically confirms variants of these guys, which is just terrifying. Godspeed, Helldivers. And that marks the end of the trailer, but not the end of the blog. We get 2 more very notable confirmations in the blog post. Alongside the Escalation of Freedom update, Arrowhead is looking to mitigate the griefing problem and are finally reworking the social menu. They say that they want players to engage with the game in good faith and sportsmanship, and recognize that some players are abusing the kick feature to grief others. Which, first of all, is just messed up. If you do this, please click off my video. I don't even want you here. But in order to combat this, once a player is kicked, that kicked player will spawn into their own session of the exact same mission, in the exact same spot, with the exact same loot. So basically, it would just take you out of someone else's lobby into an identical one that you own, so you don't miss out on any of the samples or loot on the floor. Even more exciting than this, though, is the new social menu. It has been revealed and known for some time that the devs at Arrowhead were looking to completely rework the social features. As many know, it basically doesn't function right now and hasn't for quite a while. In fact, if you wanted to add a friend that is cross-platform, it wouldn't work for a lot of players, and they would have to instead go through Arrowhead support. And that is just ridiculous. Luckily, we are getting a new social menu in this patch, and it would be a real lifesaver if it not only works, but is just straight up better than the original one. Even on launch, the social menus were always slow and just clunky, took forever to add someone and get them in your lobby, so I'd love for this one to be fast and efficient. Lastly, in the blog, they once again state that this update will be full of awesome additions, long-awaited improvements, and a ton of surprises to discover. So to end this video, let's get into what some of those surprises actually could be. To kick it off, this is less of a surprise. I think everyone knows this is probably coming, but I am certain that this update will have to include some form of balancing. It's been a really long time since we've gotten either buffs or nerfs. And I just know Arrowhead's got to be like itching and jonesing. They are fiending to get some nerfs onto us. That's what their favorite thing is to do. And I know for a fact that there are some weapons in the game that the devs just aren't a fan of. For one, the new commando stratagem is not supposed to one-shot fabricators in the fashion that it currently does. That's not to say it will 100% be changed, because hopefully they see that players love the commando and decide, hey, let's just leave it alone. All I'm saying here, though, is don't get attached to some of the S tier weapons in the game, because I think some of the top dogs they're going to be looking at to nerf, like the Tenderizer, Breaker Incendiary, and some stratagems like the commando. Other than that, though, I think they'll actually keep the balancing to a minimum this patch. Considering how much is going to be added, I think it's best that they just let players get a feel for it. Changing too much about the current weapons while adding a ton of new content could be just way too disruptive for many players. I think at minimum, we should get an opportunity to feel out the new difficulty and the new enemies with the current balance that we have in the game. So all that is just to say that I think there will be some balancing in this patch, just not a ton. They'll tone down some S tier items, beef up some D tier ones, and just leave it at that. That's what they should do. On top of this, I think it's a very safe bet for this update to include a war bond somewhere in there. Maybe not on the same day as the update, but I believe a new war bond will be arriving within a week or so of Escalation of Freedom. For one, come next week, it will have been nearly 2 months since we got our last war bond, which is the longest we've ever gone without one. We are overdue, but let's just think about this from a financial perspective. This update is sure to bring back hundreds of thousands of players to the game upon release, so logically they want to capitalize on the increased activity. So dropping an absolute banger of a war bond while a ton of players return to the game is the smartest thing they could do. But speculation aside, we know for a fact that a war bond called Freedom's Flame is coming. It got leaked by PlayStation themselves on their store, so I can actually show this one to you guys. It may say Viper Commandos at the top, but that is just a mistake because it's not done. Everything below that is describing Freedom's Flame, the newest premium warbond. It says it includes fiery weapons, life-saving armor, capes, emotes, player cards, and patterns. Luckily, we already knew all of this was coming, and this PlayStation leak basically just gave us confirmation. Again, I can't show you guys, but I can describe what was leaked. This warbond will contain 2 armor sets, both with a fire-resistant passive. We don't know how much resistance we will get, but anything is better than nothing. It will also contain 1 primary weapon, 1 secondary, and 1 third weapon that people actually don't know what it is. This has led some people to believe it is a stratagem inside the warbond. I say that's bogus, and it is probably a second primary, but you never know. Anyway, all the weapons are fire-related and probably do incendiary damage. We're also getting an orange camo for our vehicles, and of course some emotes, titles, and player banners. This warbond was added to the game files in early June, was updated a final time in July, and the fact that PlayStation just told us that this thing is on the store, that should give us enough to believe that we will be seeing this warbond soon. I believe as soon as early August, so fingers crossed. The last thing I think we'll see with this update is some new stratagems. Well, a lot of them, probably. There are a ton of them still floating around in the game files that will at some point come to the game, and I'd like to believe that we'll see at least some of them with this update. For one, there was that one stratagem weapon that we talked about earlier on that player's back, but there are a ton more in the files that we could see. The carpet bomber has been talked about for a long time and was even teased by Johan a few weeks ago. There's also the incendiary grenade launcher, which could make sense if we get the fire warbond. There are even the trench walls that have been leaked since pretty much the first week of release. But these three are just some of the long list of leaked stratagems that are currently usable in the game. So yeah, there are a ton of options, and I'm confident we'll see some of these when the new update drops, because it would just make no sense to add a ton of stuff for the enemies, but no new toys for us Helldivers. Anyway, to recap, I feel strongly that we'll see some balancing changes, a new warbond, and some new stratagems. I know it's pretty vague, but that's just kind of how it is, because this is all just a toss-up. You have to remember, we are entering uncharted territory here. This is the first major update Helldivers 2 has that not only has been given a date, but has been given a name and a trailer. So clearly they want this to be a big one, and we have no clue what could be included. The potential is limitless. We could see a level cap increase, we could get a resource sink, we could see more enemies that weren't in the trailer, we could get armor color customization. I mean, genuinely, there could be anything. But that also means everything I said today could simply not make it, besides the trailer stuff, of course. I'm confident a lot of it will, but I don't work at Arrowhead. These are just my predictions, and I hope you understand that. I hope you enjoyed my breakdown. Thank you so much for watching. Please drop a like and a sub, because these next few weeks of Helldivers are going to be absolutely insane, so you don't want to miss anything I post, trust me. I have a ton planned and will be streaming for the release as well, so it'll be a blast. I hope to see you stick around. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself. See ya!